Yesterday we saw the release of Kuki Shinobu, and so far the reviews have been crummy at best. This is unfortunate news for people who were very much looking forward to the game's first electro healer. Now at first glance, Shinobu's kit looks really interesting, which it is, but as of yet there seems to be something missing. Now I'm sure most of you have already watched guides and reviews already, so I'm gonna just quickly go over her kit. Her normal attack sequence consists of 4 hits that end in a kunai throw, which looks really cool, but her autos have fairly low multipliers, making her not ideal as an on-field DPS, which is to be expected as she was designed to be a support, so that's not really a big deal, it's just unfortunate we won't get to see it more often. Her charged attacks do only cost 20 stamina though, which could be useful if that was more of what you'd be using her for. When you activate Shinobu's burst, she stabs the ground, creating an AoE field in front of her that deals electro damage over time. 2 seconds if she's above 50% health and 3.5 seconds if she's 50% or below. It has a cooldown of 15 seconds and it scales entirely off her HP. It has an energy cost of 60, which doesn't seem very high, but it can be hard to keep it up off cooldown without significant energy recharge, a Favonius weapon, or another electro in the party, since she doesn't generate a great deal of particles for herself. If you're building her for healing and electro application though, that's not really a problem because her burst doesn't really do enough damage to worry about trying to weave it into every rotation, even when her HP is relatively high, and you'd be accomplishing that with her elemental skill anyway. Speaking of her elemental skill, that's where her kit gets interesting, and a little complicated. Shinobu's elemental skill sacrifices 30% of her current HP to create a grass ring of sanctification around the active character that deals AoE electro damage and provides healing over time. The use of this skill cannot drop her below 20% HP. Now the healing is based on Kuki's max HP, but the damage dealt is based on her attack. So if you have her built for healing, the damage is pretty negligible. And if you build her for damage, you lose out on a lot of the healing. Her A1 passive grants a 15% healing bonus when Kuki's HP is at 50% or lower, and on top of all that, her A4 passive increases the healing and damage output of the Sanctifying Ring by 75% and 25% respectively of her elemental mastery. So all in all, that's a pretty loaded skill, and basically has triple scaling. So for right now, I think it's more beneficial to build her for HP to focus healing with elemental mastery as a preferred substat for the added bonus. The alternative is to build her full EM if you're using her primarily for reactions, but either way I don't see the difference in healing or damage being significant enough to really matter yet. And I say yet because with Dendro not being released yet, but coming soon TM, we don't know what kind of reaction Electro is going to have with it and whether or not an EM build will be more optimal in the future. That being said, I think the problem I have with Kuki Shinobu is that right now she feels pretty lackluster all around. She's described as a jack of all trades, but isn't the saying jack of all trades master of none? Well, right now she's more of a jack of all trades good at none. For comparison's sake, I decided to test her healing against Bennett's. My Bennett is level 80 out of 80, has the prototype Rancor, he's on a 4-piece Noblesse set with HP, ER, HP, and his artifacts are super under-leveled. He has just under 18k HP, and his healing does 3,408 per tick. My Shinobu is level 70 out of 80, holding the Iron Sting with a 4-piece Tenacity build with triple HP, netting just under 34k HP and 344 Elemental Mastery, and her healing is 2,771 when she's under 50% HP and 2,410 when she's above 50%. Bennett's talent level is higher at 11 versus Kuki's at 8, but he is at almost half of her HP. Kuki's healing would probably be closer at the same level, but given the difference in their HP, I was still expecting Kuki to do more. And when it comes to her damage, neither her raw damage, which is doing like 200 to 400 per tick, nor her reaction damage are substantial enough to warrant replacing another unit in most of my teams. However, your mileage may vary. So where does she fit? I mean, anywhere you want, really. You can build her as a physical DPS if you want. You can play her and the game any way you see fit. But she currently isn't really diving headfirst into the meta, which is most people's concern. Now she does of course fill the role of a dedicated healer in a taser team, which is what it's been lacking. Aside from a Kokomi taser team obviously, but if you're using Kokomi and taser, then Kuki's healing becomes irrelevant and her damage isn't really high enough to replace Fischl or Beidou. I've been trying her out in a taser team with Ayato, Fischl, and Sucrose, and it works, but I think aside from the healing and the electro application, she's not contributing very much, and the other three are doing all the heavy lifting, and I'd be able to get more damage if I would just swap her back for Beto. Also for fun, since I had him in my team for the comparison, I did a Masanori run with Bennett, and I got some decent overloads, but when I say decent, it's in comparison to her other damage, so it's still not objectively great. So my question is, was her kit designed with Dendro in mind? If that's the case, then time will tell if her potential is yet to be seen. But on the other hand, it feels a little disappointing to have a character released who isn't complete as is without the existence of a yet to be released element. I think she should have at least been released in a decent enough state so that she doesn't feel like a downgrade from other units she would be replacing in a team, and having us need to hope that she'll be better once the meta potentially changes in a future version. And if not, and this is how she was meant to be to begin with, I have to wonder why Hoyoverse would release a character with such a disappointing kit, and why all the split scaling, when Yelan, who was also just released, scales off of HP and only HP, and in turn has a very cohesive and functional kit. Ultimately though, I do really like Kuki Shinobu as a character, and I'm going to continue to play with her, especially in the overworld. Her design is incredible, and I love her animations, even if they don't pack much of a punch. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Kuki Shinobu, whether you got her or plan to or not, and any other ideas that you might have concerning her kit and team comps. With that, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe for future videos to come, and I will see you next time.